Far to the south, beyond the reach of forests and cities, lies a continent shaped almost entirely by cold. Antarctica rests beneath a vast dome of ice, its surface sculpted by wind, its horizons wide and pale. For much of the year, darkness lingers, and temperatures fall to levels that test the limits of living tissue. Along the margins of this frozen land, where the continent meets the sea, a narrow and shifting world forms each winter. Seawater freezes outward from the coastline, creating platforms of ice that extend over the Southern Ocean. It is here, on this seasonal foundation, that the life of the emperor penguin quietly unfolds. The emperor penguin is the largest of all penguin species, standing just over a meter tall and weighing as much as 40 kilograms at certain times of year. Its body is upright and streamlined, shaped by generations spent moving between ice and ocean. The back is dark, almost black, while the chest fades into white. Around the neck and near the ears, soft washes of yellow and pale orange catch the muted Antarctic light. These colors are subtle, not bright, blending gently into the subdued tones of snow and sky. Unlike many seabirds, emperor penguins do not build nests from vegetation or stones. In Antarctica, such materials are scarce. Instead, they depend on stable sea ice as the foundation for reproduction. Each year, as autumn advances and the sun dips lower, adult penguins leave the open water and travel inland across the forming ice. They walk in a measured, rocking motion, conserving energy as they move. Some colonies journey more than 100 kilometers from the ocean's edge to reach traditional breeding grounds, areas where the ice is historically thick and reliable through the winter months. The stability of winter sea ice is essential. It must remain intact for many months, long enough for courtship, egg-laying, incubation, and the early growth of chicks. If the ice breaks too soon, the cycle is interrupted. If it forms too late, breeding may be delayed. The rhythm of emperor penguin life is therefore closely tied to the freezing and melting of the Southern Ocean. Antarctica is the coldest continent on Earth. Winter temperatures in emperor penguin colonies can fall below -40 degrees Celsius. Winds often exceed 100 kilometers per hour, sweeping across the open ice with little obstruction. Under these conditions, exposed skin would freeze quickly, and unprotected animals would lose heat at a dangerous rate. The emperor penguin survives through a combination of structural design and physiological control, each adaptation contributing quietly to its endurance. The feathers of the emperor penguin form the first barrier against the cold. They are short, stiff, and densely packed, overlapping like small scales. Beneath the outer waterproof layer lies a thick coat of down, fine and soft, trapping air close to the skin. This trapped air provides insulation, slowing the transfer of heat from the warm body core to the frigid environment. The feathers are arranged with remarkable density, more numerous per square centimeter than in most other birds. When the wind passes over the surface, it encounters a smooth, continuous shield. Beneath the skin lies a substantial layer of blubber. This fat layer can measure several centimeters thick, especially before the breeding season when adults have fed extensively at sea. Blubber serves as insulation and as stored energy. During the long winter fast, particularly for males who incubate eggs, these reserves sustain metabolism for many weeks. Fat is metabolically efficient, releasing more energy per gram than carbohydrates or proteins. In this way, the body carries its own fuel supply, sealed beneath layers of feather and skin. The shape of the emperor penguin also minimizes heat loss. The body is rounded, reducing surface area relative to volume. Extremities are short and tapered. The flippers, adapted from wings for swimming, are narrow and covered in scale-like feathers. The legs are set far back on the body, an arrangement that aids in swimming, but also reduces exposed limb length when standing upright. Often, penguins rest with their bodies lowered and their bills tucked toward the chest, further conserving warmth. Within the flippers and legs, a specialized circulatory arrangement helps maintain core temperature. This system is known as counter-current heat exchange. Arteries carrying warm blood from the heart run closely alongside veins returning cooler blood from the extremities. As these vessels lie in contact, heat transfers from the outgoing arterial blood to the incoming venous blood. By the time blood reaches the feet or flipper tips, it has cooled significantly, reducing heat loss to the ice or water. At the same time, blood returning to the heart has been pre-warmed, preventing a drop in internal temperature. This quiet exchange occurs continuously, without conscious effort, preserving precious warmth in a landscape defined by cold. The emperor penguin can also adjust its metabolic rate. During extreme conditions, individuals are capable of lowering their metabolism, reducing energy expenditure. This is particularly important during the breeding season, when males may fast for over 100 days while incubating a single egg. By slowing physiological processes slightly, the body extends its energy reserves. Heart rate decreases, and activity is minimized. Movement becomes deliberate and economical. Behavior complements biology. When winds intensify and temperatures fall further, emperor penguins gather into dense groups known as huddles. Hundreds, sometimes thousands, stand close together, bodies nearly touching. In this formation, individuals on the outer edge shield those within from the full force of the wind. Over time, penguins shift positions gradually, allowing each member access to the warmer interior. The movement is slow and collective, almost imperceptible, yet effective. Within a tightly packed huddle, temperatures can rise significantly above the surrounding air, creating a shared microclimate amid the vast ice. Despite their upright posture on land, emperor penguins are highly adapted to life in water. The Southern Ocean provides their food, primarily fish, squid, and krill. Their bodies are streamlined for swimming, with powerful flippers that propel them forward in smooth, sweeping strokes. A layer of air trapped within the feathers adds buoyancy, though penguins can release some of this air during dives to reduce drag. In the water, they move with efficiency, often reaching speeds of several meters per second. Diving is central to their survival. Emperor penguins routinely descend several hundred meters in search of prey, and some recorded dives exceed 500 meters. To accomplish this, they rely on further physiological adaptations. Their muscles contain high concentrations of myoglobin, a protein that stores oxygen. Blood volume is relatively large, and hemoglobin binds oxygen effectively. During deep dives, blood flow to certain organs is reduced, prioritizing the brain and heart. The heart rate slows, conserving oxygen while submerged. These adjustments allow dives lasting more than 20 minutes, though many are shorter. Yet even with these remarkable traits, survival remains closely tied to the stability of ice and ocean. The emperor penguin's life is not separate from its environment, but interwoven with it. Sea ice provides a breeding platform, protection from some marine predators, and access to feeding grounds at its edge. The ocean offers nourishment, but demands skill and endurance. Between these two realms, ice and water, the species has found its balance. In the stillness of an Antarctic winter, beneath skies that shift from pale blue to deep indigo, emperor penguins endure conditions that few other birds could tolerate. Their existence is not defined by sudden action or dramatic display. It is shaped instead by steady adaptation, by layers of feather and fat, by careful circulation of warmth, and by the measured pacing of energy across long months of cold. From these foundations, a life cycle begins, sustained by ice, ocean, and the quiet resilience of a body built for the farthest south. As March arrives in Antarctica, the long light of summer begins to fade. The sun lowers gradually, tracing shorter arcs across the sky. Temperatures decline, and the surface of the southern ocean starts to freeze once more. Thin sheets of new ice spread outward from the continent, thickening day by day. This seasonal expansion of sea ice marks the beginning of a deliberate migration for the emperor penguin. Through the late summer, adult penguins have fed extensively at sea. Their bodies carry ample fat reserves, stored beneath the skin in preparation for the demanding months ahead. Now, guided by instinct and memory, they leave the open water and step onto the forming ice. The journey inland begins quietly. There is no sudden signal, no visible leader. Individuals move in loose groups, all oriented toward traditional breeding sites that have been used for generations. These colonies may lie dozens of kilometers from the ocean's edge. The distance varies by location and by year, depending on how the sea ice forms. Some breeding grounds rest upon fast ice, a stable platform attached firmly to the Antarctic coastline or to floating ice shelves. Fast ice remains relatively fixed in place through the winter, anchored by geography and cold. Its reliability is essential. The coming months will require uninterrupted stability. Travel across this landscape demands steady effort. Emperor penguins walk upright, balancing carefully on their short legs and webbed feet. Their posture appears formal, almost composed, as they rock gently from side to side. This motion is efficient, shifting weight in a way that reduces muscular strain. When the surface is smooth and the distance long, they often lower themselves onto their bellies and push forward with their feet and flippers. This behavior, known as tobogganing, conserves energy and allows them to glide over the ice. The body becomes a sled, the flippers subtle rudders for steering. Wind moves constantly across the open plain. Snow drifts, accumulate, and shift. At times, visibility narrows to a soft gray blur as fine ice crystals lift from the surface. The penguins continue steadily, sometimes pausing, sometimes clustering briefly before resuming their path. There is no urgency in their movement, only persistence. Each step brings them closer to a site where life will begin again. As autumn deepens, the light continues to diminish. Days shorten, and twilight lingers longer. By the time many birds reach the colony grounds, the sun may skim low above the horizon or remain hidden for extended periods. The air grows sharper, and the ice beneath their feet thickens further. In this austere setting, small groups gradually merge into larger gatherings. The colony takes shape. Emperor penguin colonies are not constructed in the manner of nests or burrows. There are no walls, no physical boundaries. Instead, the colony is defined by presence. Hundreds or thousands of birds assemble on a broad expanse of level ice. From a distance, they appear as dark vertical marks against a white field. The spacing between individuals is modest but deliberate, enough to allow movement, yet close enough to foster social interaction. Many adults return to the same general colony year after year. Within this large assembly, males and females seek partners. Emperor penguins are seasonally monogamous. A pair bond forms for the duration of a single breeding cycle. Some pairs reunite in successive years, though this depends on survival and timing. Because individuals spend much of the year at sea, separated by vast distances, reunion is not guaranteed. Still, a proportion of pairs do find one another again through vocal recognition. Vocalization plays a central role in this process. Each emperor penguin possesses a distinctive call, shaped by the structure of its vocal tract and the rhythm of its breath. When thousands of birds stand together on the ice, the colony becomes a layered soundscape of low, trumpeting notes and softer murmurs. Within this acoustic environment, individuals listen carefully. A returning mate's call can be recognized even among many others. The exchange is not dramatic. Two birds approach gradually, aligning side by side, their heads lifting and lowering in gentle synchronization. For those forming new bonds, courtship unfolds with restrained gestures. A male may stand tall, extending his neck and producing a measured call. A female responds in kind. They circle one another slowly, mirroring posture and sound. Over time, these exchanges settle into a quiet partnership. There is no nest to defend, no territory to mark beyond personal space. The colony itself offers safety in numbers, reducing exposure to predators and to the full force of Antarctic winds. By choosing to breed during the Antarctic winter, emperor penguins follow a strategy unique among penguin species. Most penguins nest during the relatively milder months of spring or summer, when food is abundant and temperatures are less severe. The emperor penguin's cycle is offset. Eggs are laid in late autumn, chicks hatch in the depth of winter, and fledging occurs in early summer. This timing ensures that when the young are ready to feed independently at sea, the ocean will be rich with seasonal productivity. The decision to breed in winter requires careful coordination between physiology and environment. Adults must arrive at the colony with sufficient fat reserves to endure prolonged fasting. The sea ice must remain stable through the coldest months. The colony must be positioned at a distance that balances protection from breaking ice with reasonable access to feeding grounds once parental shifts begin. As April progresses, the colony grows denser. The surface of the ice becomes marked with faint tracks and compressed snow. Winds continue to move across the open expanse, shaping drifts into low ridges. Above, the sky transitions between muted daylight and early darkness. In this quiet convergence of birds, Preparation advances without haste. The emperor penguins stand together on the fast ice, their black backs turned often toward the wind, white chests facing inward. Beneath their feathers, metabolic processes adjust to colder air. Fat reserves remain intact, waiting to be drawn upon. Within the bodies of females, eggs begin to develop, each one a single substantial investment in the coming season. This gathering on the ice is both a return and a beginning. The ocean lies far behind them for now, hidden beyond kilometers of frozen surface. Ahead stretches the long Antarctic winter, a season of darkness and endurance. Yet within this stillness, the colony holds a quiet purpose. Pair bonds have formed, positions have stabilized, and the cycle moves forward in steady progression, guided by cold, by memory, and by the enduring rhythm of life at the edge of the world. By May, the Antarctic autumn has deepened into early winter. The sun now appears, only briefly, tracing a shallow path above the horizon before withdrawing again. Shadows lengthen across the ice, and the air grows increasingly still between intervals of wind. Within the colony, pairs stand close together, their movements measured and economical. Inside the body of each female, a single egg has formed, nourished by reserves accumulated during the productive months at sea. In late May or early June, the egg is laid. There is no nest prepared to receive it. The surface beneath the birds is solid ice, unyielding and intensely cold. The egg, pale and smooth, is large relative to the size of the parent, weighing roughly half a kilogram. Steam rises faintly from its surface in the frigid air. The moment of laying is quiet, without spectacle, yet it carries significant consequence. From this point forward, constant warmth is essential. The transfer of the egg from female to male is one of the most delicate actions in the emperor penguin's life cycle. The female lowers the egg carefully onto her feet, balancing it above the ice. The male stands close, aligning his body precisely. With slow coordination, the egg is rolled from one set of feet to the other. Both birds maintain steady posture, their heads lowered as if observing each movement. If the egg were to rest directly on the ice for more than a brief interval, the temperature difference could cause it to freeze. In air that may fall below -40 degrees Celsius, the margin for error is narrow. Once the egg is positioned on the male's feet, he draws a fold of abdominal skin downward to enclose it. This structure, known as the brood pouch, forms a warm chamber against his lower body. The pouch is richly supplied with blood vessels, allowing heat from the core to pass efficiently into the egg. Tucked securely beneath this living shelter, the egg remains elevated above the ice, insulated from direct contact with the frozen ground. After the transfer is complete, the roles of the pair begin to diverge. The female, having invested considerable energy in producing the egg, must now replenish her reserves. She turns toward the distant ocean. The journey back may span many kilometers, retracing the path she traveled weeks earlier. Her body is lighter now, yet her fat stores have diminished. She must reach open water, where fish, squid, and krill provide the nourishment needed for her own survival and for the feeding of the chick that will soon hatch. The male remains at the colony. From this point forward, he will not eat until the egg hatches and the female returns. This fasting period typically lasts between 60 and 70 days. During that time, he relies entirely on stored fat accumulated before the breeding season began. His metabolism adjusts accordingly. Activity decreases to the minimum required for balance and small shifts in position. Heart rate slows modestly. Energy is conserved in subtle ways, extending his endurance through the coldest and darkest part of the Antarctic year. As June progresses, darkness becomes nearly continuous. The sun dips below the horizon for extended stretches, and the colony exists under dim twilight or complete night. The sky, when clear, reveals dense fields of stars. At times, curtains of aurora drift silently overhead, pale green or violet against the blackness. On the ice below, thousands of males stand with eggs balanced on their feet, each bird a quiet sentinel. The cold intensifies. Winds sweep across the flat expanse, lifting fine crystals of snow that skim along the surface. In these conditions, individual exposure would lead to rapid heat loss. To reduce this risk, the males gather into dense huddles. They stand shoulder to shoulder, bodies pressed close enough that little space remains between them. From above, the formation appears as a shifting cluster, its edges defined by those facing the wind. Within the huddle, warmth accumulates. The combined heat of many bodies raises the local temperature significantly above the surrounding air. Birds at the center experience the greatest protection, while those at the perimeter shield the group from direct wind. Over time, positions change gradually. A penguin at the edge will edge inward, while another moves outward. This rotation occurs without conflict or urgency. The movement is subtle, almost continuous, distributing exposure evenly among participants. Throughout this period, the egg remains concealed within the brood pouch. The male adjusts his stance carefully if the wind direction shifts, or if the huddle compresses more tightly. The egg is never abandoned. Even during minor disturbances, such as brief separations, within the group, each male maintains constant contact between pouch and shell. The temperature inside the brood pouch remains near the adult's core temperature, close to 38 degrees Celsius, despite the severe cold outside. Physiologically, the male's body undergoes gradual change as the fast continues. Fat reserves diminish, and body mass declines steadily. Muscle tissue is preserved as much as possible. Hormonal signals regulate appetite and energy use, preventing unnecessary activity. The bird's posture remains upright, conserving heat by minimizing exposed surface area. At intervals, he may shift weight from one foot to the other, ensuring adequate blood flow while keeping the egg secure. Time passes in measured increments. There is little variation in the environment beyond fluctuations in wind and temperature. The colony's soundscape consists of low calls and the soft friction of feathers brushing against one another. Although each male incubates his egg, individually the shared huddle creates a communal buffer against the elements. Survival depends not only on personal endurance, but on collective proximity. Meanwhile, far from the colony, females move through the ocean. They dive and feed intensively, restoring lost weight. Their bodies rebuild fat reserves that will later be converted into nourishment for the chick. In the dark waters beneath the sea ice, they navigate by memory and by subtle cues in the environment. The distance between ocean and colony remains substantial, yet timing is precise. They must return before the newly hatched chick exhausts the male's limited ability to provide nourishment. As July approaches, the incubation period nears its end. Inside each egg, development has progressed slowly but steadily. The embryo, sustained by yolk, has formed organs, bones, and a covering of soft down. When the time arrives, the chick begins to break through the shell using a small, temporary structure on its beak known as an egg tooth. This process can take many hours. The male senses subtle movements beneath the brood pouch, responding with low vocalizations. The Antarctic winter remains at its most severe during these weeks. Yet within the brood pouch, protected from wind and ice, new life prepares to emerge. The male, thinner now than when the season began, continues his vigil. His fasting has extended across more than 2 months. Fat reserves are significantly reduced, though not yet exhausted. The success of his effort depends on precise timing, on the female's return from the sea, and on the continued stability of the ice beneath the colony. In the still darkness of midwinter, thousands of males stand together, each carrying a fragile future balanced on his feet. The huddle shifts slowly, breathing as a single mass against the cold. Beneath layers of feather and skin, beneath the fold of the brood pouch, warmth persists. The long incubation draws toward its conclusion, sustained by patience, by stored energy, and by the quiet cooperation of birds enduring the Antarctic night. By July, the Antarctic winter has reached its quiet midpoint. The darkness remains prolonged, and the air holds a steady, penetrating cold. Within the brood pouch of each male emperor penguin, subtle changes begin to occur. After approximately 64 days of incubation, faint vibrations can be felt against the skin of the pouch. Inside the shell, the chick shifts and prepares to hatch. The process unfolds gradually. Using a small temporary projection on the tip of its beak, known as an egg tooth, the chick taps repeatedly against the inner surface of the shell. Each movement is small, yet persistent. Over many hours, sometimes more than a day, a crack forms. The shell weakens in a narrow ring. Eventually, the chick pushes free, emerging into the insulated space beneath the father's body. Newly hatched emperor penguin chicks are small relative to their parents, typically weighing just over 300 grams. They are covered in soft gray down with darker markings around the head and face. The down traps air effectively, but it is not sufficient to withstand Antarctic winter temperatures without protection. The chick cannot regulate its own body temperature. Its survival depends entirely on remaining sheltered within the brood pouch. The father lowers his body carefully, ensuring that the chick rests securely on his feet, just as the egg once did. The brood pouch encloses the chick, creating a warm chamber against the skin. Within this space, temperatures remain close to that of the adult's body, far above the surrounding air. The chick emits faint peeping sounds, and the father responds with low vocalizations. These early exchanges begin the formation of vocal recognition between parent and offspring. In many cases, the female returns from the ocean around the time of hatching. Her journey has been long. After laying the egg weeks earlier, she traveled across dozens of kilometers of sea ice to reach open water. There, she fed intensively, diving repeatedly in search of fish, squid, and krill. her body restored lost fat reserves, and her stomach filled with food that would later be delivered to the chick. When the time approaches, she leaves the sea and begins the return walk inland, sometimes covering more than 100 kilometers across shifting ice and snow. Yet the timing is not always exact. If the chick hatches before the female has returned, the male faces a delicate interval. His fat reserves are nearly exhausted after more than 2 months of fasting. He has not eaten since before incubation began. Despite this, his body is capable of producing a small quantity of nutrient-rich secretion from the lining of the esophagus. This substance, sometimes referred to as crop milk, is not identical to mammalian milk, but serves a similar purpose. It is pale, thick, and rich in proteins and lipids. The father regurgitates this secretion carefully. Arrival. This ability represents an arrival. This ability represents an additional physiological adaptation, allowing a narrow buffer of time in an environment where delay could otherwise be fatal. Outside the brood pouch, the colony remains arranged in dense huddles. Males with newly hatched chicks continue to cluster together, shielding one another from wind. Movements are deliberate. Any misstep that exposes the chick to open air for too long carries risk. Temperatures may still fall below -40 degrees Celsius, and wind can amplify heat loss further. The chick must remain elevated on the father's feet, never touching the ice directly. When females approach the colony after their feeding period, they encounter a vast assembly of birds that appear nearly identical in shape and coloration. Visual cues alone are insufficient for locating a specific mate. Instead, emperor penguins rely on sound. Each adult possesses a distinctive vocal pattern, shaped by subtle variations in pitch and rhythm. The returning female calls repeatedly as she walks through the colony. Males answer in turn. The exchange may continue for several minutes as the two birds narrow the distance between them. Even amid thousands of overlapping calls, individuals can distinguish the unique signature of their partner. Once reunited, the pair stands face to face, necks extended, voices synchronized briefly. Beneath the father's brood pouch, the chick hears the calls of its mother for the first time. The transfer of care now takes place. The female lowers her body and positions her feet close to the male's. With careful coordination, the chick is moved from the father's brood pouch to the mother's feet. As with the earlier transfer of the egg, precision is essential. The chick must not be exposed to the open air for more than a brief moment. Once secure beneath the female's pouch, it receives its first substantial meal. The mother regurgitates partially digested fish, squid, and krill into the chick's beak. The food is warm and energy-rich, derived from her recent feeding at sea. The chick swallows in small motions, its body absorbing nutrients that will support rapid growth. Over the coming weeks, it will double and then triple in weight. For now, it remains sheltered and largely motionless, conserving energy. With the chick successfully transferred and fed, the male's role shifts. His fasting period, lasting over 2 months, has brought his body weight down significantly. Fat reserves are nearly depleted. The need to return to the ocean becomes urgent, though his movements remain measured. After a brief period of rest, he turns away from the colony and begins the long walk back across the ice. The journey to the sea mirrors the one made by the female weeks earlier. However, the male now travels in a weakened state. His body mass may have decreased by nearly half since the start of incubation. Even so, his stride is steady. The drive to reach open water and replenish energy guides him forward. Upon reaching the ocean's edge, he will enter the water and begin feeding intensively, restoring lost weight and preparing for his next period of parental care. Back at the colony, the female continues to brood the chick. She shelters it within her pouch and feeds it at intervals. The chick grows stronger, though it remains dependent on constant warmth. As winter gradually progresses toward late August, the sun begins to reappear for longer periods each day. Light returns slowly to the ice. The cycle of parental exchange has now begun. When the male has recovered at sea, he will return to relieve the female, allowing her to feed again. This alternating pattern will continue for several months. Through careful coordination, vocal recognition, and precise timing, the pair sustains their single offspring in one of the most demanding environments on Earth. In the subdued light of the Antarctic winter, the colony persists. Chicks rest beneath protective folds of skin, nourished by regurgitated prey drawn from distant waters. Fathers, thinned by fasting, move toward the ocean, while mothers stand guard against wind and cold. The rhythm remains steady, shaped by endurance and by the quiet exchange of responsibility between two parents on a wide expanse of ice. As August gives way to September, subtle changes begin to appear across the Antarctic landscape. The sun rises higher above the horizon, and daylight extends gradually. Temperatures remain low, yet the intensity of winter begins to soften. Within the emperor penguin colony, the rhythm of parental exchange settles into a steady pattern. One adult departs for the sea, while the other remains behind to guard and feed the growing chick. After his return from weeks of feeding in the ocean, the male locates his mate and offspring through familiar vocal calls. The transfer of responsibility occurs with practiced coordination. The chick, now larger and more alert than at hatching, shifts between the feet of one parent to the other. Each adult feeds the chick by regurgitating partially digested fish, squid, and krill stored in the stomach. These meals are energy-rich, supporting rapid growth in a short, seasonal window. During foraging trips, adults may travel significant distances to reach productive feeding areas. The edge of the sea ice shifts as spring advances, sometimes extending farther from the colony. Penguins walk or toboggan across the ice before diving into open water. Once submerged, they resume their role as agile marine hunters. Dives vary in depth and duration, depending on prey availability. The returning parent often carries several kilograms of food internally, enough to sustain the chick for days. In the colony, the chick's body changes steadily. Its gray down thickens, offering improved insulation, though it remains vulnerable to severe cold. The chick grows quickly, sometimes increasing its mass several-fold within a few weeks. Its voice strengthens as well, developing a distinct call that will later allow it to recognize its parents among thousands of others. By September, many chicks have grown large enough to spend short periods outside the brood pouch. They stand on the ice beside their attending parent, their down ruffled slightly by the wind. At this stage, constant brooding is no longer necessary, though protection from extreme weather remains important. As more chicks reach this level of development, small groups begin to form. These gatherings, known as creches, consist of clusters of chicks standing close together while both parents forage at sea. The formation of creches marks an important transition. Instead of remaining continuously sheltered by a single adult, chicks now rely in part on collective presence for warmth and safety. Standing, shoulder to shoulder, they reduce individual heat loss, much as the adults do during winter huddles. Within the group, temperatures are modestly higher than in open air. Creches also provide limited protection against predators. In Antarctica, few land-based predators exist, yet certain birds patrol the skies. The South Polar skua is one such presence. Skuas are opportunistic and may prey upon unattended eggs or small chicks. A tightly packed creche presents a more formidable target than a solitary individual. The density of bodies and the proximity of neighboring adults discourage many attempts. Even as chicks spend time in creches, both parents continue alternating feeding trips. The coordination between adults remains essential. Upon returning from the sea, a parent enters the colony and calls repeatedly until the chick answers. Amid thousands of similar voices, recognition depends on subtle acoustic cues. Once reunited, the adult lowers its head and the chick inserts its beak to receive food. The feeding interaction is brief yet focused, transferring essential energy for growth. Throughout October, daylight strengthens further. The Antarctic spring advances, and surface conditions begin to shift. Snow may soften slightly under the sun, and the edges of the sea ice show signs of thinning. The colony becomes more dynamic, with chicks moving more freely. Between creches and parents, their bodies are now substantially larger, often approaching half the size of an adult. Yet one major transformation still lies ahead. The gray down that has insulated the chick since hatching is not waterproof. If a chick in down were to enter the ocean, water would penetrate the feathers, removing trapped air and drawing heat rapidly from the body. Survival in near-freezing seawater requires a different type of plumage, one that seals tightly against moisture. As November approaches, the first signs of molting appear. Patches of darker feathers begin to emerge through the down. The molt progresses gradually, replacing the soft, insulating covering with sleek, juvenile plumage. These new feathers resemble those of adults in structure, though coloration may differ slightly, often lacking the full intensity of adult markings. Molting requires energy. During this period, chicks continue to rely heavily on parental feedings. Adults increase the frequency of trips as the sea ice edge moves closer and food becomes more accessible. The Southern Ocean, enriched by spring sunlight, supports rising productivity. Phytoplankton blooms expand beneath the ice, forming the base of a food web that sustains krill, fish, and squid. This seasonal abundance aligns with the growing nutritional demands of developing chicks. By late November and into December, many juveniles complete their molt. The transformation is visible across the colony. Where once stood clusters of gray, down-covered chicks, now stand streamlined young penguins, clad in waterproof feathers. Their bodies are denser and more robust. They practice flapping their flippers and moving across the ice with increasing confidence. The shift to juvenile plumage is essential for the next stage of life. Waterproof feathers trap a thin layer of air close to the skin, preserving warmth during immersion. They also create a smooth surface that reduces drag while swimming. Without this adaptation, entry into the ocean would not be possible. As summer advances, the sea ice begins to break apart. Leads of open water widen, and the distance from colony to ocean decreases. Juveniles gather near the ice edge, often accompanied by adults. Their movements remain cautious. The ocean, once a distant presence beyond the winter horizon, now lies before them as a broad expanse of shifting blue and gray. Within the colony, the steady exchange of parental care gradually draws toward its conclusion. The chicks, no longer confined to brood pouches or dependent on constant shelter, prepare for independence, the incubating. Environment itself signals the change. Light lingers long into the day, and the air feels less severe. The long Antarctic winter has passed, replaced by a brief, productive summer. Through these months of spring and early summer, growth has been sustained by alternating journeys to sea and by the careful timing of molt. Each phase has followed a measured progression, guided by temperature, light, and the availability of food. Now, clad in waterproof feathers and standing near open water, the young emperor penguins approach the threshold of their first swim, ready to enter the ocean that has shaped the lives of their parents. By December, the Antarctic summer has settled over the coastline. The sun now circles high and steady, rarely dipping far below the horizon. Sea ice continues to thin and fracture, opening broad stretches of water along the edge of the continent. At the colony, the transformation of the young emperor penguins is nearly complete. Their soft gray down has been replaced by dense, waterproof juvenile feathers. Their bodies are stronger, their movements more coordinated. At a certain point, there is no clear signal, no single moment of departure. Small groups of juveniles begin moving toward the sea ice edge. Adults remain nearby, though parental feeding has gradually diminished. The young birds gather at the boundary where solid ice meets open water. Before them lies the southern ocean, vast and cold, extending beyond sight. For a juvenile emperor penguin, the first entry into the ocean marks a profound transition. On land, movement has been deliberate and somewhat constrained. In water, the body reveals its full design. One by one, young penguins slip beneath the surface. The initial movements may appear tentative, but instinct guides them quickly. The flippers, shaped by evolution into efficient propulsive limbs, begin steady strokes. The feet act as rudders. The streamlined form reduces resistance. The ocean into which they descend hovers, near the freezing point of seawater, yet their newly developed plumage prevents rapid heat loss. Each feather overlaps tightly with its neighbors, forming a smooth, water-resistant surface. Beneath this layer, air remains trapped, contributing buoyancy and insulation. A modest layer of fat further protects internal organs from cold. Once at sea, juveniles will not return to the breeding colony for several years. Their early life unfolds across a wide and often shifting marine environment. They disperse into the Southern Ocean, following currents and prey distribution. The details of their movements remain only partially understood, as the vastness of Antarctic waters limits continuous observation. What is known suggests that young emperor penguins spend these formative years refining their diving skills and learning to locate food efficiently. Growth continues during this period. Muscle mass increases, particularly in the chest, where powerful muscles drive the flippers. Diving. Capacity improves with age and experience. The cardiovascular and respiratory systems mature further, supporting longer and deeper descents. Juveniles gradually approach adult size, though full physical maturity may take several years. Sexual maturity is typically reached between 3 and 6 years of age. The timing varies among individuals, influenced by environmental conditions and individual health. Until that point, young penguins remain at sea year-round. They do not participate in breeding and are not bound to fixed colony sites. The ocean becomes their primary habitat, offering both sustenance and challenge. Adult emperor penguins are among the most accomplished divers of all birds. Fully grown individuals are capable of descending beyond 500 meters below the ocean surface. Some recorded dives exceed this depth. During hunting trips, they may remain submerged for over 20 minutes, though many dives are shorter and targeted. Beneath the sea ice, light filters, faintly through cracks and thinner sections, illuminating schools of fish and drifting krill. The physiological adjustments that support such dives are precise. Oxygen is stored efficiently in blood and muscle. High concentrations of myoglobin within muscle tissue bind oxygen for use during prolonged submersion. As depth increases and oxygen reserves decline, the heart rate slows significantly, a response known as bradycardia. Blood flow is prioritized to essential organs, while peripheral circulation is reduced. These changes conserve oxygen and extend dive duration. Pressure increases steadily with depth. At 500 meters, the surrounding pressure is more than 50 times greater than at the surface. The emperor penguin's body tolerates these forces through structural resilience and controlled air management. Air sacs collapse in a regulated manner during descent, reducing buoyancy and limiting nitrogen absorption. Upon ascent, expanding air assists in returning to the surface. Prey beneath the sea ice consists primarily of fish, squid, and Antarctic krill. The availability of each varies by season and region. During certain months, krill may dominate the diet, while at other times, fish become more prominent. Hunting is often conducted alone, though multiple penguins may forage in the same general area. Vision plays a central role underwater, and the eyes are adapted to function effectively in dim light. After successful dives, adults return to the surface to breathe briefly before descending again. A series of dives may occur in succession during a feeding session. Once sufficient food has been consumed, the penguin returns to the ice edge and begins the journey inland if the breeding season approaches. Each year, surviving adults retrace the path between ocean and colony. The timing is precise, aligned with the advance of autumn sea ice. As the ocean's surface begins to freeze in March and April, adults leave the water and walk inland once more. The same breeding grounds, stable fast ice attached to the continent or ice shelves, receive their return. The cycle that began with courtship, egg transfer, incubation, and chick rearing repeats itself in measured continuity. Not every adult survives each year. Predation in the ocean, changes in sea ice conditions, and the demands of fasting all influence survival rates. Yet those that endure participate again in the winter breeding season, standing on the ice through darkness and wind. The life of the emperor penguin is entirely synchronized with the rhythms of Antarctic sea ice. The expansion of ice in autumn creates the platform for breeding. The persistence of winter ice shelters, incubating males and developing chicks. The retreat of ice in summer opens access to abundant feeding grounds. Every stage of development, from egg to independent juvenile, unfolds within this shifting framework. Across decades, the species has adapted to one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Temperatures may fall below -40 degrees Celsius. Winds can exceed 100 kilometers per hour. The ocean remains near freezing year-round, yet through dense plumage, insulating fat, specialized circulation, and coordinated social behavior, emperor penguins maintain a stable existence. There is no abrupt conclusion to their story. Instead, there is repetition shaped by season. Adults move from ocean to ice and back again. Chicks hatch, grow, molt, and depart. Juveniles spend years at sea before returning to stand among thousands on the winter ice. The environment dictates the pace, and the penguins respond with quiet precision. In the broad stillness of Antarctica, beneath a sky that alternates between endless summer light and prolonged winter darkness, the emperor penguin continues its steady cycle. Ice forms and recedes. The ocean provides and demands. Generation after generation, life proceeds in careful alignment with cold, wind, and water, sustained by adaptations, refined over time, and by a rhythm measured not in urgency, but in endurance. Thank you for spending this time exploring the life of the emperor penguin, and for allowing this quiet journey across Antarctic ice and ocean to unfold at an unhurried pace. If you would like to continue with more calm, detailed explorations of the natural world, you are welcome to subscribe to the channel. There will be many more steady stories, told with the same gentle rhythm. For now, may your thoughts settle softly, and may the stillness of the ice carry you into a peaceful night.